Before preparing and submitting your federal and state quarterly tax forms, it is a good idea to run some preliminary reports in your payroll software to ensure that the information that will be included on these forms is accurate. This lesson will show you some of the many helpful reports in payroll and how to use them when preparing to work on your quarterly tax reports. After completing this lesson, you'll be able to identify and use reports in the payroll application that will help you prepare to submit your quarterly reports. There are a number of reports in payroll that can be used to view tax information. Let's take a look at a couple together, starting with the Deposit Summary Report. In Payroll, go to the Reports menu, Pay Period Processing, and select the Deposit Summary Report. Choose the file that the checks for the quarter you are preparing tax forms are in. In this dataset, all checks are in the current file. And then click OK. Now enter the date range for the quarter using the check date prompt fields. It is recommended to use check date whenever possible when reporting on tax information, as the check date, not the period end date, determines which month, quarter, or year a check should be reported in. If you would like a hard copy of the report, click the Start button, or if you prefer to view the information on screen, click Print Preview. This report is separated into two sections, the employee taxes on the left and the employer paid taxes on the right. For each tax tract in your software, you will see the contribution, which is the amount of tax calculated, as well as the taxable and subject to information totals. The report is summarized to the tax ID and sorts by tax level, starting with federal taxes, then state taxes, and finally local taxes. It provides a top-level summary of the tax amounts owed and the taxable and subject to amounts for each tax we are tracking in payroll. Many customers run this report each week to determine the amount of taxes due to be paid, though it can also be used for larger time frames, such as a month, quarter, or year, to verify tax information. Another report that can be very helpful at quarter end is the 941 Preparation Report. To access this report, go to the Reports menu, Tax Preparation, and select 941 Preparation. Enter the date range for the quarter, and again, make sure the date basis is set to check date. As it is named 941 Preparation, this report is very helpful in preparing to print the Form 941. It shows federal withholding taxable and tax withheld, as well as the subject to amounts and withheld amounts for both Social Security and Medicare, as well as a final column showing the total tax liability. This report shows a total for each check date within the date range used on the report. It subtotals by month and provides an overall total for the date range used on the report. In this case, the report total would represent the quarterly totals. This information should be especially useful in determining where amounts on the 941 Schedule B are coming from, as well as the amounts on the first page of the Form 941. Both the Deposit Summary Report and the 941 Preparation Report are summarized, meaning they do not show employee detail. If you need something more detailed that provides the amounts by employee, use the Subject to reports. These are found on the Report menu under Tax Preparation. Notice there are 5 different Subject to reports. The Subject to Employee and Subject to Employer have columns for year to date, quarter to date, and month to date. So if you have not yet closed the last month of your quarter, use these reports and view the information in the quarter to date column. If you have closed the last month in the quarter, then use the prior period subject to reports. These reports have columns for prior year, prior quarter, and prior month. In this example, you would view the information in the prior quarter column. Last of all, there is the subject to date range report, which allows you to enter the date range you want tax information for. It can be run for a day, week, month, quarter, year, or multiple years, depending upon what information is needed. So in this case, you would enter the dates for your quarter. Let's take a look at the Subject to Date Range report. Select the file the checks are stored in. Again, in this data set, all checks are in the current file. And then click OK. Select whether you want to see tax information for employee or employer paid taxes. For this example, use employer paid. And then enter the date range you need information for. For example, enter the dates for the last quarter of the year. This report sorts by tax ID and then employee. For each tax, it lists each employee that had amounts for that tax tract, what their gross pay is, what their taxable income is, what their subject to income is, and finally the amount of tax that calculated on that income. Federal unemployment is the first tax displayed, but if you scroll down, all of the other taxes being tracked in the system will show, including state and even local taxes if they are being tracked. This report is very useful when needing to track down the tax information for a specific employee or a specific tax. For a detailed listing of recommended reports at quarter end, go to Help and select Help Topics. Go to the Index tab and use the keyword Quarter. And then select the topic Which Quarterly Reports to Print. This help topic will give a detailed listing of all of the reports in the payroll module that can be useful when preparing to produce your quarterly forms. Now that you have completed this lesson, you should be able to determine what reports in the payroll module to view prior to completing your quarterly reports.